What's up, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, and the overall markets. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar moving forward, break down other factors out there that you should be watching for as time goes on. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. The offer ends in just 5 days. Anyways, let's talk about what's happening with this market. So the market started off on a high end to start off the day. Then we got a huge rug pull because of two main things. Number one, we had Cash Card from the Fed talking about how the Fed is very uncertain when it comes to their policies and such. He is recommending the Fed to keep rates the same for longer. So that's what he's saying so far. And then we also have President Trump announcing that he wants to unveil more auto tariffs very, very soon, and this caused the market to tank. So I'm going to break down what's happening with these in more details. Just know one thing: the whole market came down. This dragged NIO down to lose this support, which is not a very good sign. If we can't reclaim 4.4, we're likely going to continue to fall to the low fours. So just keep that in mind. And then we have SPY, the QQQ, Tesla, Nvda, big tech all selling off as a result of these new tariffs. So what's happening? Citigroup gave NIO a buy rating. They believe it's going to double in value in the future. But for now, things are a little bit more complicated looking at the price action. The price price ratio is falling as NIO is losing some strength relative to the markets. And then on top of that, we also have a lot of volatility, especially on Thursdays. We're only green about 49% of the time. And besides that, I'm not seeing anything else that's too crazy, so just keep that in mind. On top of this, NIO has dropped quite a bit with all their financial results. Even after earnings, we're still down quite a bit. They're down about over 10% ever since they announced their earnings. Earnings didn't really impress investors, unfortunately, because it's going to take them longer to become profitable, and because they did miss on, I think, their overall revenue expectations. Their Q1 guidance was not that strong, so this is a kind of like a tough period for NIO. But the long term is still bright, and this does provide some more buying opportunities. But for the short term, things are very hard. Now, for tomorrow, it's going to be Thursday, March 27th at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have the GDP growth rate, the GDP price index, not to mention more GDP sales data coming out. This may cause some volatility. We also have some bill auctions at 11:30 a.m., but the main thing to be watching for is going to be what happens with our GDP numbers and initial jobless claims. So far, the market started to sell off amidst what Kashkari was saying. So he basically said that he's recommending the Fed to keep rates the same for longer amidst the uncertainty about the tariffs. He mentioned that President Trump's tariffs are likely going to be ineffective at bringing back manufacturing. He did say that based off what he claims from 2018. And then he mentioned that when it comes to the way in which things are looking, um, the Fed's job is becoming a lot more complicated with these tariffs, right? There's like a double war that's going on. First off, the tariffs could cause more inflation, then they also have to fight inflation in different ways. So what he said did cause the market to sell off. This is Kashkari. He is once again one of the most important Fed governors right now. So please keep that in mind. Sorry, he's the Fed president right now, at least for Minnesota. So keep that in mind. So that's part of why the market sold off a bit. Another factor is President Trump announced that he wants to increase tariffs on autos. That is expanding the trade war. As of right now, the details are not out. At the time I'm recording this, we don't know exactly what the details will be, but Trump is saying that he wants to do that. Before, he was saying he wants to be more lenient than reciprocal when it comes to the tariffs. I think he mentioned that yesterday. He's hyping up April 2nd. But then he started to say that he's going to be announcing new auto tariffs very, very soon. He's saying that it's going to be important and that these could be coming out as soon as April 2nd. He's saying that he's going to likely impose them very soon. And whatever he says, at least for the auto industry, it's going to cause a lot of whiplash when it comes to the overall economy. This could be affecting a lot of different companies, so get ready for this. And one thing that's worth mentioning is that for Mexico and Canada, for the products that comply with the USMCA regulations, they're once again subjected to tariffs later. There's been a delay up until like April. So until then, we'll just have to see what Trump announces. But he is saying that he will be increasing tariffs on the automotive industry. Besides that, there's nothing else too crazy. We just have a couple of earnings coming out. The fear and greed index is currently at fears, making up the majority of sentiment. There's also extreme fear right now. The put to call option ratio is at extreme fear again, and then the VIX is starting to bounce. We'll see if it reclaims this 50 daily moving average. So this is causing a big amount of shaking in the markets. We need NIO to reclaim this trend line, get back up at 4.4. If not, we could be dipping lower. I do think we try to push a little bit higher tomorrow morning for like 4.3. And then we could reject there and then start continuing to fall to the low fours if that does not end up holding. For SPY, I know this is a little hard to see. Guys, see this big yellow line? Let me just change the color so it's easy to distinguish this. We have this white trend line down here. This is our support. There's a chance we do come down to fill this gap. We end up testing this before it tries to bounce. That's the most likely possibility I'm looking for. So it could be a bit more downside before it tries to bounce. Same thing with the QQQ. We have something very similar going on right here. I'm going to change this as well. See this yellow, or let's make this white, the white trend line. That's going to be our main support. There's a good chance we do kind of dip towards this, and we'll see if we bounce as we fill this gap. On the IWM, we're barely at support. We're kind of losing this, so we do have a gap to fill. So I do see this dipping to about 204 or below. On ES, we have a channel over here. We're kind of rejecting off this upper resistance. So if we come down to fill this gap, that would take us down to the low 5700s. We might be coming down to fill that gap first before it tries to see some kind of bounce. If we don't hold this, though, we could be dumping more, and this could be looking like a flag that's forming, essentially. So that could be another signal that this is about to see a big rug pull. We'll see, though, depending on President Trump's tariffs and what kind of reaction we get to the trend line. On NQ, we started off with this wedge, got a nice breakout, but we could redraw this as another channel that's essentially forming. So please keep that in mind. That's going to be very, very key, at least for all of us. So keep that in mind. And as far as things are continuing, if we don't hold above 20,000, we're going to likely continue to fall to fill that gap towards 19,900. On Bitcoin, we're trading sideways right here. If we lose 85,000, we could be dumping more. And if we end up breaking past 88,000, we could be bouncing. So we're kind of in the middle, especially as we're forming this nice accumulation. However, as we're range bound, be careful to see if 85,000 holds or not. That's going to be a very key level as well. We have a double top on Nvidia. We have to reclaim 115. If we don't, we could be dipping towards 111 and all the way back down towards 109. For Tesla, we are once again looking weak because of the fact that there could be more auto tariffs coming out. And then simultaneously, we saw some negative news involving Canada. They're basically planning on freezing rebates worth about $43 million. So that's not the best of news for Tesla. As a result, the share price is dipping of a gap to fill down to about 250. I think we're going to be visiting 265 to 260, and then we'll see if that holds. If we hold this, we could try a bounce. If 260 fails us, I do think we dump to about 249, and then we'll see how it holds support there. Apple has to hold 220, or else it's going to be dipping lower. It's barely at support, so we'll see how well that holds up. Let me go over a few more. Coinbase is dipping. We have a gap to fill. We're actually very close to filling this gap all the way down here around this 190 area. So I do see 188 to 190 coming. Amazon has a gap to fill. If we don't hold 200, we're gonna likely fill the gap to 196. Meta's looking weak here. We have to see if we could reclaim 611. If we don't, we could be dipping towards 597. If we don't hold 390, we could be dipping back down towards 385. And for Google, if we get a rejection here, we could be dipping back down towards 166. Anyways, there's a lot of weakness in this market, at least to start things off. The VIX, we want to see this reclaim like the 20 area to be really bullish. So we'll see if it reclaims that there's a gap up here to fill. So it's eventually going to run back up to 25. So I want to be very careful about this. So we'll see how well the VIX holds up here. We do have the GDP numbers coming out and more potential announcements from President Trump. So we'll give this the time it needs. For now, the market does look a little bit more bearish temporarily. We haven't lost critical supports on SPY. We still have this trend line over here, the white one. We're still technically holding this. Same thing with the QQQ. We haven't lost critical support yet, but there's a good chance we're going to test it. So we'll see how it goes. For NIO, the new automotive tariffs are not the best of news for the entire auto industry, and that's kind of dragging NIO down, not to mention the reaction after earnings and because of the broader markets. So if we do start off retesting in 4.3 tomorrow, we could reject and continue to fall if we don't end up holding there. And there's going to be a risk of us hitting the low fours. This is another long-term buying opportunity. The short term is a little bearish, but keep in mind the long term is still bright with all the potential that remains. Thank you for listening. Have a good one and peace out.